Hello and welcome to the Real Africa podcast. Today with me is Dev and Ken. I'm Heath the Joker. Today we're discussing a very beautiful film, a very beautiful portrait of our Lodger. But before I get into it, Dev and Ken, please tell us, what are you watching lately? What have you been watching this week?
I've got, what's it called? It's a collection of short stories. That's what I've been reading instead. I have my, sort of the way, I feel like maybe the seasons. So I have times when I just want to watch TV. I have times when I prefer to read. Then I have times when I'm like coding and I spend like months without reading, without watching or reading anything. So I feel like I'm now in that season where I'm more comfortable reading. And I like short stories a lot because I like to read something and finish it. And I'm not a very fast reader. So reading novels takes forever.
And Dev, what are you watching?
So I've been stuck on this Korean series, which is a zombie period drama, but it's a brilliant piece of film work. So I want to actually say something else about Kingdom. It's a Korean period horror film, and it's one of the most beautifully shot series I've seen in a very long time. And we've, Korean film has obviously been in an extraordinary evolution in the last 30 years, with the Lady Vengeance trilogy particularly standing out. That's Old Boy and its two companion pieces. And what we're seeing, I think, in Korean film is now this enormous sort of renaissance, or actually it's not a renaissance, it's a birth, because a renaissance is a rebirth. This is a birth, and they're really stepping up now to challenge, the greats of Japanese cinema. And interestingly, Kingdom has got an anti-Japanese theme. It's about a Japanese invasion of Korea, and then there's a sort of zombie epidemic happening at the same time. It's an extraordinary piece of work, so I can't recommend Kingdom more highly.
Now you've made me want to watch it.
Yeah.
There are those documents that China released recently that were, I think, declassified from the US or something, about the
Japanese
experiments.
war crimes.
Yes, the experiments that were done. Yeah, that was some scary shit, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Japanese culture and I love sushi. But yeah, I mean, Japan was this imperial power. Imperial powers do nasty stuff. So yeah, but it's about time Korea. I'm really happy to see the Korean culture rising.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. How about you?
I've been watching Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
Oh, is that streaming now?
Yes, it's available to stream wherever you get your.
Just come out on
The third part. Yes, it's now available to stream. I enjoy such movies. Like I don't watch them for the script. I just watch them to be amazed. Same as Transformers. Yes, the magic for me, that's all. But today's film is far from magical, but it is really beautiful. So Train Dreams is directed by Clint Bentley. It stars Joel Edgerton, Felicity Jones, with a supporting cast that has William H. Macy. The story is this simple. It's a portrait of Robert Grainier. Robert Grainier is played by Joel Edgerton. So you're getting like his life through the narration of a character we don't know. I don't know if it's him narrating or someone else narrating. It's an adaptation from a book, but it is shot so beautifully. That is the small plot that I can give you because I don't want to spoil it for you. Dev, have you watched it, and what were your thoughts on it?
Well, look, first of all, I would back up your assertion that it's beautifully filmed. I mean, that's without a doubt. It's stunning photography of the natural world set in early 20th century America, where tragically the forests were being cut down, these ancient forests, and they talk in the film about 500-year-old trees being sacrificed to the industrial machine that America was building at the time. And in that sense, it's an elegy to the American landscape, to the American forest. And as such, it's absolutely brilliant. My my misgivings about the film, and I'm going to jump straight in. I normally go for a long praise poem at the beginning before the takedown, but because I feel that you two are kind of in love with this movie. I'm going to be the piece of crap in the soup that makes the soup taste sweeter. That's actually a thing in French cooking. Do you know that?
Yes.
That French chefs used to add a teaspoonful of animal dung to a large soup to bring out the sweetness of the flavor. So that's me today. My issue with this is that although it sits in a tradition of American film that portrays the beauty of the American landscape, it doesn't have, like, for example, the weird backstory or the weird story of, let's say, Badlands, which is one of my favorite 1970s American, like, nature films with Martin Sheen. Absolutely fantastic film, Badlands. The story here was very slow, very long, and not much happens for the whole first part, except they're kind of chopping down trees and building railways very, very slowly. After failing to be a farmer, I think have we discussed the plot?
Yes, I gave them a very brief rundown because I did not want to spoil.
No.
But he's an orphan. Robert Grainier is orphaned at a very young age. He does not know how his parents passed away, but he is told, well, your parents are no more. It's a very cruel world that he is thrown into. And the first thing that he sees is tree lodging. So he goes into that, and that becomes his life. It's the only thing he has ever done.
Yeah.
It's the only thing he has ever known. In the middle of the film, his wife suggests farming. His wife suggests, let's buy a few pieces of cattle and whatever and try to raise it. And they do so, but they did not show us a lot about the farm or if it was created, because soon still Robert goes away to lodge somewhere.
I can confirm, having tried to set up a farm in Fort Portal, farming isn't as easy as it looks. And so he goes off to become a lumberjack, which is the phrase for someone who cuts down trees commercially. I found the film as a poem to nature stunningly beautiful. So if you like sort of National Geographic documentaries about forests, this is, for me, it has the kind of epic life story quality of a film like Forrest Gump. With this kind of, again, a bit like Forrest Gump, you've got a central character who kind of is moved through historical periods. It's Forrest Gump meets National Geographic in a forest. That's my single line review. And so if you love those natural films and you love the American landscape and forests, it's beautiful. You know, you can relax with a glass of wine and a herbal cigarette and really immerse yourself in this kind of beautiful evergreen world of the mystical early 20th century America. And it has got that beautiful historic charm as well. People living in log cabins, wearing broad-brimmed hats. And then interesting themes of Chinese workers working alongside the early 20th century American workers. And he says at one point, you know, I didn't care whether they came from Shanghai or Chattanooga choo-choo. They were both equally foreign to me, you know. And I like that sort of way that they drew attention to the early ethnic mix of America, you know, the early 20th century ethnic mix. But, my God, it was slow. And, you know, the person I was watching with walked away after about an hour. And I stayed on. I did find it very beautiful, very slow. And my other criticism, I found it very cliched. It was full of sort of American cliches. You know, you get saved by a Native American. You know, it's got the soundtrack just sounds like a million other American country movie soundtracks. I found it very cliched, I'm afraid.
I see. Yeah. Oh, nice. Interesting. So now I think that what you're saying is, I think, what I usually say about African films you like, right? And I think you carry like a significant amount of context that I don't have coming in. And for me, I think that's why I really, really love this film. So first of all, I'm not looking at the green. I mean, the cinematography is beautiful, the scenery is beautiful, but me, I'm looking at the person, right? So the showing this moving portrait of this guy because this guy is living in a world almost entirely passively, right? Decisions are made for him. He sort of almost it doesn't have any kind of agency. As long as something has to happen, it has to happen. And then he just follows along. And we see a story of, for me, what I thought was portrayed was a person who is content, right? It's almost meditative in the way that I appreciated it. And I don't mind the length. Right. I thought if this was 1 hour, if it was shorter than that, it would have been too short. Right. Yes. And I think for me, that's what I liked. On top of that, again, the picture is beautiful. It's not this sort of unrealistically beautiful. It's not like too beautiful, to be real. Yeah. So that is also the other thing. So I'm engaged with the senses, and the music you're saying is cliche. Again, I don't have that context. So yeah, for me, I'm also seeing it for the first time, and I'm like, wow, I wish I made this film, right? As a filmmaker, that is like what I have in my mind, right? So from what I'm seeing is, again, this kid who doesn't have a past per se, because, the kid is orphaned. We don't have a lot of knowledge about what, the circumstances of the parents, goes into the lumbering. He's not so friendly with the lumbers either. He's very lonesome, very content with just being him. He goes to church. The first girl that smiles at him, he marries the girl, and that becomes
Kind of cute though.
she's very beautiful. Yes, that is true. Yeah, that again, part of the exaggeration of the film, I think, was that because I imagine in a rural place like that, a beautiful girl like that would be who everyone is eyeing, right? Yeah. So the scenery is beautiful. The women are so beautiful. It's unrealistically beautiful. And that I saw, and I was like, okay, this I accept.
Know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get exactly how you mean. Yeah. But for me, again, the focus on this one person who's living through life without trying to control it, per se, right? Without trying to control it, and he has accepted, and even in the marriage, right? Because the big question, again, that never gets asked is why he has to work, right? For me, the question I ask is, this man is living in a rural place. It's not like he's greedy for anything. Why does he have to leave his family for so long to go and work, right? I mean, the answer is money, but I didn't see him buy a fancy car or something. I don't see why he needed that much money. And my reason I would give, I don't know what the director intended, but my reason I would give is he was content with his lonesome, right? He just wanted that space. Even when he had the family and all that, I think at first it was all romantic and but he was okay with going to lumberjack, with some sort of purpose, knowing that, okay, my wife and children are out there. But he was so comfortable with who he was, because even during his work, he's not the guy who was so friendly with other people. We don't have like those shots of this guy interacting with, so and so and so and so. So that is, for me, this works. And, we see his life progress, and we are almost like, again, it's a novella, the thing, the book that is based, it's a novella. So we see like, his life move from one step to another, and we are also just sort of passively watching. We are watching from a third eye. We are not, there's very little judgment we are expected to make. There's very little engagement from our end besides just passive watching. It's, again, a meditative film that goes from that. And then we see the parts where he has to suffer, and we see the parts where he grows out of the suffering, the parts where he accepts, we see, I think, what they try to portray as madness. It's not so clear. So that part of the daughter, whether the daughter comes back, whether he's just hallucinating the daughter, and then the part of the friendship at the end, making the friendship. And even after that, the last part is where he decides, okay, what am I doing in my life? And he goes to take a plane and fly around the place he was living in, and then apparently died peacefully. That's what the narrator told us, right? Apparently died peacefully. And it's a beautiful life. That is how I would categorize it, right? It's not a life that has any ambition per se. It's not a life that has things a man wants. It's a life that is lived. Yeah, that is the image I took away from that. That's why I loved it so much.
Yeah, so for me, this was a simplistic film, number one. We do not get simplistic films anymore. I think every director, every producer wants to do a film that's a showstopper. Make as much noise, have the best actors, let it have million lights, let it be huge. This is a simple film. And for me, these are the films that I grew up watching. House on the Prairie, Christie. There were those Christian-themed old movies that have that century Americans, those ones, yeah, that are living in the middle of nowhere and how they make their families, how they get married. Those were the first films that I watched as a young girl. And to see that a movie like that is being created in 2025, like, for me, it's beautiful. It's sentimental. When I told you that this movie evoked lots of emotion in me, like the fact that they're telling a story and they're not rushing. They're not rushing. I feel like any other director would have done a montage. They're married, there's a fire, poof, 30 minutes, and then take you through other things that they deem important. But they wanted you to go through this life and feel that it's important and immerse yourself into this man's life. There's a time he gets into the water and looks at his hands. He looks at his hands and sees how big they've gotten. That was the last time that he did the lumberjack thing. The last time he was a lodger. Like, he looked at his hands, he saw how big they've gotten. He saw how the whole lumberjack lodging thing had changed. They're now using saws. He can't use the auto saws.
Logging.
Yeah. Yes, because when I say lodging,
it's like, I was he's staying with a friend.
He looked at his hands and he decides, I can't do this anymore. This is now above me. Technology has come in. I don't even know how to use it. The men around me are younger. They are more energetic. I'm not that energetic. And he decides to leave. Yes, he is a simple man. I love his relationship with his wife, because I've often told people that when you meet a woman who loves you, she will create a home even in the middle of nowhere. Do you guys remember that scene where he takes her to this piece of land that is barren per se, and she is using rocks and she's like, this is where the bed will be, this is where this will be. Like, a woman who loves you is able to see the future even where there's nothing. And it is hard in this commercialized world right now to even think of that, because there is no woman who's going to see a house where it isn't right now. They're going to ask you, where is it? Where the like, what do you want me? Yeah, but for a director, okay, yes, I know it was adapted from the book and I don't know how much of it was taken directly from the book, but those little moments made the film so deep. They made it so meaningful. The shots that show you above the pines, in between that light, if you've been in a forest before or in anywhere where there are pines, we all look up and we see them and it looks so magical. And then the sound editing, oh my God. You guys, I thought I was in the forest with Robert. Like, the sound editing of this film.
That cigarette was strong,
If it actually wins an Oscar for sound editing, I am going to be pleased. The last time I was this pleased with a film's sound editing was Dune 2.
Okay.
Dune 2 had incredible sound editing. If you watched Dune 2 at the cinema, oh my God. I know we did not watch Dune 1 at the cinema because it was COVID, but Dune 2, oh my God, the sound editing, like, it moved me, and I watched it on a big screen. So I don't know those who've not watched it on a big screen. If you're watching it on your Netflix, on your phone, use very good headsets. If you have
This isn't a phone film.
It isn't. By the way, it's not a fun film. Even when you try to match it to the aspect ratio of your phone, you see that you're killing some of the details that they want you to watch. It is
cinematic film, I would say. very intensively. So.
I think this is why I told people most of the films that are up for Oscar nominations, I need you to watch them and make your own judgments. You know, most times, yes, it's part of the shortlist. Most times when you tell people to do that, they don't, and they just go with their favorite film, which most likely is The Sinners or Sinners. And I know what's going to happen is that in February, when The Sinners doesn't win as many categories as people anticipate, they're going to be like, they cheated. It's a race thing. But watch these films and decide for yourself, like, which film do you really think has achieved, maybe in sound editing, in costume design, in like, which film is it for you, not for you to be carried away by the outside noise, which I know everyone now is thinking Sinners. Sorry, I have digressed. But back to the film, where the film held really strongly for me was when he lost the one thing that he had. The one thing that was taking him to work. Ken has asked why he was going to work. There was a revolution at that time and all the men had to work. They were working for sustenance. They were working for survival. Yes, it felt, when you look from an African perspective, someone who has land by a stream or a river, you can grow whatever, but please note the land out there wasn't meant for growing. It's not that fertile. As you could tell, they were not growing anything. They were just rearing. So that means the only things that they could have on that farm were fish. That's all they could have. Even at some point when the dogs came to him, he asked, I hope you can eat fish. Because that's all they have access to, plus the deer that we saw at one point, Felicity Jones' character successfully shooting up, but we didn't get to see the deer. I know why. It's expensive to show dead animals in films nowadays. It is really, it can cost you a lot. That one shot of having a deer that's dead in a film can be more expensive than even the other trees that they were.
You don't want to use like a stuffed toy.
Yeah, but still, it's really expensive because they get these activists that come up and protest. Yeah, it is expensive.
You eat the animal on set. And you could serve it in the catering for the crew.
But still, you have to prove that no animals were harmed. They even have to put that sign. They have to, because the activists in the US and in the UK are serious about it. They're serious about that. Any small dog, and then you portray it being harmed, it's a big deal. You have to prove that, no, this is the real dog. This is the stuffed thing. I had representatives from this activist group who were also on set to make sure that the dog wasn't harmed. Sorry, we are digressing a little bit. But the film, I loved how they took away the one thing that he had and was living for. They took it away in such a harsh way that for even the audience, because I was in that audience and I felt I wanted to cry. And for a film to evoke such emotion in me, Jesus, like a man, you're going home. Just think about it, you're heading home and there are intensive fire flames in the direction of your home. And all you can hope for is, did my wife and daughter make it out alive? And you don't see them anywhere and you lose your mind and you say, you know what, I'll stay on the ground where our home was. I'll rebuild it and I'll hope that they will come back to me. Lord God, I don't, like I said, this film made me so emotional. Also, thank God we have technology now, because at least you can call up your wife and be like, honey, I'm looking for you. Are you anywhere?
You want to do a remix where they have mobiles? Yes, and they call 911 and
The magic would die out. So for me, that was a high. The low of the film was when the daughter comes back. We do not know if it's delirium. We do not know if it's true. And I like that they left it hanging like that. So why it's a low point is that at that point, I am Robert Grainier. At that point, I, the audience, have been extremely immersed into his life that I have become Robert.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing my daughter, and I see this man smile in so many minutes. Okay, for him, it's a lifetime. For us, it's like in so many minutes, we hadn't seen him smile. Now he's smiling. He has hope. He has something to live for. So even as the audience, you're like, finally, we are going to know what happened to the wife.
Right.
And they take it away from us again. That was brutal.
Relentlessly
Brutal. Brutal. Like, but then you have to respect the fact that they managed to get you to that point, to get you invested into everything that this man represents, that when they take away his daughter or the possibility of his daughter being alive, you are harmed. In fact, you're feeling probably the same way that he's feeling. That is storytelling.
Okay.
That is storytelling.
I want to challenge some things that have just been said. Okay. So, not from you, from both of you. For me, in order to make a slow film compelling, you have to do a number of things. First of all, and where Train Dreams gets it right, is beauty. Or, let's say, horror, but visually interesting, visually poetic, and like art, okay? So in terms of art, cinematography, this film succeeds, is cinematically very pretty. Another thing you have to do when you're making a slow film successful is you have to retain interest through the narrative, so that when you're looking at the characters' faces in these long lingering close-ups, or you're looking at the nature that they're moving through, whatever it is, you're not bored because you're like part of their internal life. For me, this film didn't manage to do that. And I'm now going to flip back to something Kenneth said earlier, which is about the passive nature of the main character. He himself changes very little about him. He just moves through life. He's employed. He's not an employer. He does what he's told to do. And he does what he's told to do not only by humans, but by destiny, by fate. He's not an active agent of his own destiny. He's a straw dog being played with by the gods, in the words of some Chinese bloke 1,000 years ago. He's a straw dog. He's not an active agent. And I found that made me disengage with the film, because he wasn't there like moving the story forward. And in fact, the story didn't really move forward until the great tragedy. When the great tragedy occurs in the film, you are absolutely gobsmacked. You know, you can't believe it's going to happen. And I thought that was very well done. So, and for me, I think, have benefited from more moments like that great tragedy. And I think this story must have worked very well as a novel. It must have worked very well in text. And I bet you it has beautiful poetic descriptions of the forest. I bet you it has this kind of what they call existentialist approach to describing the human condition as, you know, we are these kind of straw dogs. That's real. But does it work on film? Bloody hell. I mean, it was so slow for me. And it felt like watching, you know, this poem unraveling, but very, very slowly. And I wasn't dying in my chair. I wasn't there going, oh God, please end, you know, but which I have had in many slow films. But it just didn't, what I would have liked to have seen was more, God, I'm going to say something heretical here. I didn't like Joel Edgerton's performance. I found him too passive, and that might not be his fault, but the way he was directed or the way he interpreted the direction didn't engage me. I wasn't there going, oh my God, you know, I wonder what he's thinking now. I wonder what he's going to do next. I found his character boring and passive, and it turned me off. I'm really sorry to say that, because in other ways, I really admire what you just said, Joanita. We need more slow films. And you said it in a different way, Kenneth. We want more novel-like films where you go on this epic journey with the characters. Unfortunately, this didn't fulfill the second criteria, which is caring about the internal life enough to sit through a slow scene. A great example of quite a slow gangster film where you are on this internal journey is The Long Good Friday with Bob Hoskins. The famous final scene is incredibly slow. It's Bob Hoskins sitting in the back of a car, and the world has just happened to him in 24 hours. Everything has just happened. And it's a very long shot. It's like a minute of just him sitting in the car, occasionally chewing his nails. Why do you sit through that to the end? Because you're thinking, what has he just been through? You're going through it with him. That only happened in Train Dreams for me in two moments. One, after he witnesses a murder, which is quite well done. In both cases, both deaths in the film are portrayed in a clever way as an absence, right? And that's rarely done. In most films, we see a gruesome throat slitting or In this film, it's clever the way they do death. Death appears as an absence. So I like those things. And after those moments, you are gripped looking at his face, internalizing these tragedies. But apart from those moments, man, guys, that's one I would have watched on double speed. But then that completely destroys the point of the film. Yeah.
I think I see where you're coming from, and this is very interesting. I think now, actually from this conversation, when I watch African films, I'm going to be more open to the intention.
Slowness.
To the intention of like the filmmaker themselves, because I think maybe I've been a bit too judgy now that I see the way you sort of the perspective you have on this, based on like the context you have, again, for films like this, and also maybe the culture itself. One thing for sure, I wish I'd found this book before I found the film.
You wish you would?
I wish I'd found the book before I found the film. Yeah, I would have enjoyed the book much more. That I think there is no doubt. The things for me, again, there is a lot of, I say this is conscious, but there is a lot of romanticism around what it's like for my, say, grandfather at my age, in the universe that he lived in, right? Or say maybe his father, okay, maybe my grandfather is a few generations sooner, but maybe his father, right? Like my great-grandfather. If he lived in a universe, if he was almost exactly like me, except, the universe he lived in, I imagine it's almost similar to this, right? If there is a balance. And that's why, for me, that part is a bit friction. It's a friction part. The part of having to work is friction, if it's not for the purpose of the fact that this is what I know how to do, and what am I if I'm not doing this, right? If that is not the goal of that part in the film, that's why, in the novel, you kind of go into the guy's mind a little bit deeper and you sort of understand why he's doing it. But in the film, when it wasn't clear for me why he had to leave the family to go and work for that long, I pull out a little bit, but then the nice cinematography pulls me back in. Yeah. Okay, but anyway, what I'm saying is that sort of acceptance part, the passive part, is something that many films shy away from, again, because of this save the cat model of Hollywood filmmaking, right? Of like, get the conflict.
Explain that, come on.
Yeah, okay, so there is a structure in which Hollywood films are done that is very, very specific to get your attention and pass you through this kind of story arc until they sort of reward you at the end, right? And if you watch so many of these films, you sort of can see that that's what they're doing. And, there's a good book called Save the Cat that sort of tries to explain this very clearly. So if you're trying to learn screenwriting, this is a good way to go about that, right? And I think after you've watched so many films and you've read so many books about writing, you kind of expect that, right? So when you watch a film, and there is this, and I think people, there are some surprising actors, rather directors, like even Quentin Tarantino, and some people who do film and just sort of break the rules to shock you, why you kind of start to accept it a bit. But most of the films that come out follow the sort of a similar path, right? So when you see a film that's intentionally not breaking the rules to become, again, more spectacle, but sort of to tone it down a little bit, if you, when I was watching this film, I was imagining, if you're, what are those things you tie on trees and lie in? What are they? Yeah, if you're in a hammock and maybe you have like a drone carrying for you a big screen and you just lay there and swing and watch, that's the film you can imagine.
Meditation film.
Yes. So that is what I was thinking. But I was thinking still a lot about the rural life, right? If say, I got a book, maybe if I, by some chance, landed on a diary of my grandfather, right? Narrating his life maybe until maybe his 50s. No, not until he got so old and maybe so wise, but that time when life was still very confusing for him. He was growing up maybe as an adolescent in like that kind of rural life. I feel like this is what it would have been like, right? Him talking about, then I met your grandmother. And, it's like, yeah, she's a person, she's there, but it's not, the romance is not, she's not consuming, the Hollywood kind of romance where you give up your entire life to be in a relationship with someone, right? That is, again, the stuff that I see in this film. The thing may be, okay, I also liked, I don't know if you guys know William Massey. I watched Shameless so many times. Yeah.
I'm starting to see that you're not a boomer, huh? Because when you mentioned Shameless and William H. Macy.
So yeah, the relationships also were, like, I liked the portrait of the relationships of these loggers, the lumberjacks, right? Are they called lumberjackers? Okay, whatever. The guys who are being lumberjacking, right? The relationships again were that distant thing, that distant thing. And when we were talking about, there's a film we're talking about, I think, when we talked about parenting and so on and so forth.
One but after another.
Yeah, one but after another. When talking about one but after another, the distant thing, I think for me, I see it in my parents, right? It's their friendship is not overly over. They will tell you, hey, don't go to the neighbor's place. It's not that we don't like them, but we don't want to overimpose ourselves on them, right? We don't want to be too much in that. We want to give them their space, but want to be there for them if they need us to be there, right? And again, the relationships were like that almost.
Like restrained.
Yes, we are
cold.
friends. Exactly. Yeah. Not cold. I wouldn't use cold. I'll say, maybe distant a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
And again, for me, it's a bit newish. Yeah, I think that's why I don't think I would like a second movie that looked like this. And I would have preferred to read the book. But yes, I am so happy that I watched this film.
Okay.
Yes, there's a scene that I need to put our attention to. When the three loggers, yeah. Yes, when the three loggers have this accident and perish, and these other lodges are also really heartbroken. These are their colleagues, yeah? And their colleagues are gone. Like, you could be gone in seconds like this. And then their supervisor is like, fellas, I would like to let you continue this, but it's not me, it's the company. We have to keep on. The demand for spruce is not going to stop simply because... And, it's like those small moments that remind you that these people are not going to be extremely friendly with each other because they know at any one moment, this could be my last. In fact, I think Robert is dealing with thoughts of impending loss. Even before he loses anything, he has, like when you listen to the narration, he feels that he might lose something, that this might be his day. This might be his day. It's like maybe because all he had known in his life was loss of his parents, loss of William H. Macy's character, loss, like when you're walking through a kind of sector, let me call it a sector, where people are perishing. Now, I imagine the people who constructed bridges. They say for every bridge, like I just imagine Ginger Bridge, they say they lost over 20 or 30 people. Sacrifices are made for the greater good. The greater good here being industrialization, America's growth. But sacrifices are made. And these men, he is working and seeing so many men perish. So he is empty.
I wonder though, from like his perspective, so I think I understand the part of the bigger good. And this is, I think, the biggest con that capitalism ever pulled, right? So I understand like that perspective from like a macro economics perspective of thinking about the bigger good. But I wonder from his perspective as the individual, do you think he's doing this for the sake of industrialization?
He didn't care much about the growth that was happening behind him. That's why he never even went to town.
Yeah.
He never did. In
Yes,
fact, it was when he knew his life was done and he didn't have anything much to live for that he eventually went to see the growth that he was seeing from afar. Remember at the start when they are constructing the earlier railways, not the more developed ones, and the narrator says, in just a few years, this is going to be, it's not going to be as important as they are thinking that it is now.
Yeah, and that first shot as well, right, is him in a train looking at the new railway, right? Yes.
You know, he's at this future point. I thought that the sub theme or the whatever you call it, but the kind of narrative that's happening beneath it about nature and industrialization was one of the things I liked more about the film, and that did keep me thinking throughout the slow scenes about our destruction of the forests, and also how impermanent the change is that we are. We're sacrificing the forest, but for a very impermanent form of change. It's not like and when you transpose that idea to the house that burns down, there's a nice metaphor there that these things that we build can be gone in a second, and that's almost the nature of modernity. And here's someone who lives on the, as it were, the fringes of civilization and modernity, just having one thing after another taken away from him. And I thought that so for me, if I had to boil down what the message of the film is about, it's about loneliness. And I thought that was in its way, I think, very moving. You were very moved by the kind of loss. But unfortunately, God, okay, here I'm going to be an arsehole again. I'm slightly overtired of American films about individualism. And that, for me, as well, was what this film was about. And at one point, he gets called the hermit in the woods. So what the other nice female character who shows up, Claire, who is, she's a forest firewoman who puts out forest fires, which, causes the great tragedy of his life. She calls him, the hermit in the woods. And this kind of heroism around the individual pioneer in the great American wilderness. Sorry, guys, as you said earlier, Kenneth, these are cliches you haven't been exposed to, but I've been marinated in them throughout the first, decades of my life. And I prefer to see them subverted in some way. And so for me, this film had a subversive message about nature and civilization that I admired, but it kind of ruined it slightly with all the cliches. And so, oh God, I mean, I wish that we saw a slow film coming out of Netflix and Hollywood that I could really admire. But for me, this wasn't it.
How about the other thing that I thought was so good was the psychology and how this was cinematographed, right? Mm-hmm. So the first part is when the Chinese guy dies and then he haunts him, right? And I thought, in the novella, this is the guy thinking and whatnot, but how do you put that on film, right? And I think they did so well. Yeah, for me, I thought, this is, again, I like to think about this in my Muganda mind, right? These sort of the delusions, the ghosts, and what these are so real, to like a Muganda person, someone who isn't exposed to maybe Western psychology and other frameworks of the mind that sort of make it very materialistic, right? Someone dying and visiting in your dreams and things like that are almost as real to some people as, me having a conversation with you, right? And the way this was portrayed in the cinematography, right? And that's why that last part, the ambiguity for me makes sense. It's better, that last part where the daughter comes and, we don't know whether the daughter came or it didn't. That for me works because, again, we've seen his, sort of like the map of his mind, right? This is how he interacts with the world, right? The guy who is dead is, I think guilt manifests as the other guy who is dead telling him something like that, things like that. And for me, I thought, okay, this I haven't seen so much of, right? Again, as I've said, maybe the second film like this will bore me to hell. But the fact that I hadn't seen so much of a film like this, with a backdrop that's that beautiful as well, I was like, this is a good film.
And I should tell you that it was shot on real location. They did not use set pieces. It was shot on real location.
You can tell that,
And like I said, such subtle achievements for 2025, where we have so many plastic films. Those films that are now going back to the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s. Those are films now that we're looking at, and we feel a wave of nostalgia, because you look at most of the films right now, and look at Anora. I don't know if you watched Anora. It won Oscars. Yeah, it won Oscars last. Yeah, and when I watched Anora, I didn't even know that it was nominated. This was just a movie I ran across when I was looking for explicit movies to watch, and I watched it.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel anything. Like I felt like, oh, okay, this babe has been played. She thought she was going to play a guy, and she has been played. That's all I felt.
Now I wish you had talked about Anora when we were reviewing What Thin Line, because the prostitution part was done so well in
Cut
Anora.
across. And then imagine my surprise seeing that it's an Oscar contender. I was like, excuse me, what?
It left you
What? I was so shocked.
Right, look, I want to make a request here. For anyone who is blown away by Train Dreams, watch another film that I feel has a similar thing about male loneliness and individuality and the American wilderness, but with a similar slowness and an attention to nature, long shots. I mean, look, there was a beautiful shot in Train Dreams where they're lying by the riverbank. That stays in my memory. Absolutely stunning. Watch Badlands with Martin Sheen. I'm embarrassed, I've forgotten the name of the director, but he's someone famous from the 70s. It, for me, does a similar trick to Train Dreams, but 10 times better. And it's got a banging story. So like, look, guys, I'm really pleased that people are advocating for slow cinema. Let's keep on that tip. Let's find good slow films. So, look, I've got nothing bad to say about slow cinema, but let's get it right.
I think I have found your film here. It's a 1973 film called Badlands.
Yeah.
The director.
It's in colour.
The director is
Someone famous.
Yeah, I'm seeing Martin Sheen. It's directed by Terrence
Malick. I mean, my God. So another great film about with nature and set in America, but in the 1700s, The New World. But again, very slow, but a brilliant story. Terrence Malick, a total genius. So, look, are we going to move on to Marx now, or?
Maybe I wanted to say one thing that I didn't like. The idea of work. I know I've hinted on it a bit.
Yes.
But I feel like the American films take for granted that we have to work, right? And, like, especially today, where now it's in question, Elon Musk and his clique, they're saying, oh, maybe this is the end of work, right? Maybe AI is going to do everything we considered work before, right? When you watch a film like this, and again, for me, I don't have the context, of what that period was like and why people needed to work. But from, the sense I've got, maybe it's justified. I feel like the director took for granted that I know why a man who lives in such a beautiful place with such a beautiful wife near a river that gives free fish has to go and work, right? I think that the director took for granted why that is,
right? The director was telling you, remember when they say they have to pay on installments? They have to get a ship or what on installment, get a horse on installment. Then the director even went ahead to tell you they were not paying that well in town. Like the director, in fact, there's a time where someone else was talking about the pricing that they pay for for these lumberjacks, $4 per day. Yeah. That's what they mentioned. Yeah. So the director wanted you to also have that at the back of your mind, that this man is doing all this hard work for $4 per day.
No, I think what I don't understand is, what is the $4 for? Okay, so this is, again, from my part.
Time. How are they going to buy airtime?
Yes, exactly. How are they going to buy data and electricity, right? Like, most of the things that I spend money on, this guy didn't need, right? And so... No, but food he wasn't buying. Okay.
You're basically saying that you're quite lazy and you don't want to work. And you're like, this guy's just a work.
Don't work. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that is exactly what it is. So that is, okay. So again, the contrast again is for me to imagine my grandparents, right? So what happens is, you have this amount of land. Mostly the land was, if you can gazette your land, you come and stay there until the British came and started making it something you can own, right? But even then, like, if you like after 1900, sometime you still just claim a certain piece of land, right? It was in abundance. And that is the sense I got at that point. But, I think from what you guys are saying, maybe that's not entirely true. But that's something you have to establish, right? You're not making a film for people who have the history of this stuff, right? But so I was saying, my grandparents, I imagine, you come, build, you take on some work, obviously, right? There is something, maybe you go fish, sell some of the fish and stuff like that to come and establish yourself. But when you've done that, you spend 6 months at home, right? If a need for work comes up, or if you're bored, you would work still, but not the way this guy did. Because, again, they have a conversation with the wife of why do you have to go, right? Yeah. First of all, he comes back home with more money than the wife expected. He's like, oh, this is actually much more than expected, considering you already sent some, right? So this already shows that sense of greed, that I thought, okay, for me, that's...
Well, what about, so it's a very interesting point you're raising on a cultural level, right? And it's sometimes talked about as the Protestant work ethic, that drove the development, the modern capitalist development of Western Europe and America, the Protestant work ethic, which is you basically feel guilty if you're not being like actively economically productive. Okay, and it's sometimes raised by sociologists and historians as like one of the reasons why European civilization was so aggressive in its expansion, that everyone was like, gotta be working, 8 till 7, you're hard at it, and you feel guilty in the eyes of God and civilization if you're not chipping in and doing your bit. I think it's fascinating that you've raised that. I mean, that never occurred to me, and I think internally I am also of that culture. So I don't sort of question, like, even though I'm quite lazy and would like to lie in a hammock and watch movies in the sky, as you suggest, smoking herbal cigarettes with Joanita and other people, I am also, I'm a workaholic and I've got it inside me. There's something really fascinating, and I find that ties in with a point I was trying to make earlier about like the destruction of the forests in the service of a very ephemeral, fleeting civilization, here today, burnt down tomorrow. So, look, this film raises fascinating themes. It's quite provocative in a funny, slow, boring way.
Yeah, but how would we rate it? How did you rate it? How did we rate it?
I'll go first. Poetic, beautiful, thought-provoking in a number of ways, delightfully slow, but boring, and too concerned with this idea of the heroic lone male individual in the wilderness that I felt was not, it didn't reimagine that in any way for me. I would recommend this to people who like slow film, and as I say, my summary is Forrest Gump shot by National Geographic without the funny bits. I'm going to give it a 6.7 because it is beautiful and it is an achievement of cinematography and cinema. But I can't recommend it to like a wider audience who want to be entertained. It's not classic entertainment. It's more like film, poetry, philosophy. Yeah. 6.7.
Ken, how would you rate it?
So I think for me, cinematography, it stood out. What do you want the audience to feel after? Yeah. And for this film, that is a feeling that I kind of crave, I would say. The feeling of I'm content. I feel like, right? Like this is a good life to live, right?
On a journey.
Yes. That is usually something I get when I read a very good book, right? I feel like a lot of cinema is there to excite you. So you feel energized, you feel like, that is the feeling. And this time I kind of sat back and I'm like, wow.
What a film.
Yes, what a film. And I like that a lot. I think that for me, that was a good mark of the film. Again, everything else, most of the stuff that I understood I thought it was well executed. The cinematography is well, the direction is well, the editing is well. The sound is well. Again, because you're familiar with this kind of sound, I think for it was cliche, but for me it was slightly novel. So the sound was so well done. That one thing about work, I feel it's propagandish.
Love your subtexts that you pick out.
that one thing actually is what makes it for me an 8 rather than a 9 or 10, because I feel like
you didn't connect with the ideology of the film.
Yes, I feel like that pulls me out a little bit, but otherwise, what a film, yes.
For Ken to rate a film that high, I chose it, just so you know. That was my selection. But for me, I feel that such stories have to be told. I wanted us to talk about the power of narration to moving arts and its contribution, and when is the narration too much and when is it perfectly done. And I feel that Train Dreams is a perfect, it shows you, it's a masterclass as to how to use narration in a way that does not take away, but just adds in a subtle way. Like, he is not using it to push way too much to make it expositionary, but he is using it to just be like, well, this is happening, like, take it as you will at face value. It may not be exactly what happened, say with the case of the daughter at the end, but that is what we know. Maybe this is a story that has been told in town. Like, when this new lady comes up and says, I've heard what they've said about you in town. I've heard. So now we know that Robert's character is being discussed in town frequently. And they're saying that's the man who probably went mad when his family disappeared. And so maybe even the story that we are seeing on our screens is as a result of what people have heard. That's why some points will be far removed from reality, but that's how people usually report speech. That's how when you hear people talking about someone, that's how they make it seem like, what happened to that man? He just, his family didn't come back and he just slept there and his cuckoos. Yes, and I respect that. So, because if it was overly done right, it would not fit it being a narration from someone who had, because when you hear something, it can't be right, it can't be exact. I love this film. How I heard about it, all the reviewers were saying, stop what you're doing, watch Train Dreams. Don't watch the trailer.
Nice.
I never watched the trailer for a film that I know I will like. I don't watch trailers. Like One Battle After Another, I never watched the trailer. Like, I want to go in blind.
It's not a very good trailer for One Battle.
Yes, by the way, it doesn't reveal that much. Yeah. I don't like trailers because they spoil the element of surprise. You're seated there and you know everything. Nowadays, they even show you everything, even the surprise, the actor that you are supposed to see and be like, oh, you mean, let's say Felicity Jones is in this. You're not going to have that reaction because you already know she's in this and you know he has a sense of loss. So maybe you start to imagine he has lost someone. So the element of surprise is taken away from you. So I went in this blind and it was such a pleasant watch. It's one of my top 5 films this year.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, I'm rating it a bold 10 out of 10 because yes, it is a perfect film because even the one moment where I would complain would be that, so you haven't told us exactly what happened to the wife, but understand that it's being told from a narrative point. Yes. This is what people have heard. No one knows exactly what happened to the wife. Probably if you get the real Robert to stand up and come tell us the version, he may tell us exactly what happened to the wife. But because the town doesn't know, or maybe he didn't go to the town to correct them and tell them, I found my wife's body, I buried her, and sometimes I have nightmares of my daughter coming back. We don't know that. So this is a rumor that we have, and we've watched it, and it's perfect. The color grading, guys.
I even forgot to talk about that relationship with the supportive Indian friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I did.
Dev says it's cliche.
I mean,
but
if you've seen it, but
they are usually the ones who help
in like every other American film.
Yes, yes. Because I was also watching Eat Welcome to Diri, and yes, we have the Indians who come in to save the day after the Americans mess it
I
up.
like such stereotypes.
I give up.
So I've enjoyed the film. We are hoping that you will watch it and enjoy it as well. Those who watched it, don't forget to share your comments. How did you like it? How did you rate it? Do you think that our ratings are overboard, like mine, which is a 10 out of 10? Or are you comfortable with them and do you relate with them? We need more films like this.
Yes,
That's what I feel.
I want to ask Kenneth something. So I think this was one of the films that I've given like the harshest reviews so far. I'm quite kind about films, as you've seen. So today I feel a little bit guilty after giving that review. Do you feel guilty when you give things? Because you always give people low marks. Any guilt?
I don't think. Okay, in my opinion, I have to be honest, sort of to myself at least. And so that is what I am going for most of the time. When the film I think I've been the harshest on is One Battle After Another.
Yes.
And because I kind of, that the politics, okay, the thing that I didn't like about it scares me. You understand, right? It's sort of like...
No, you were very articulate.
Yes. I think that sort of scares me a little bit. That direction going that way, I thought like Mandela had shown us the right way, but we are kind of ignoring him now. And that scares me. For Thin Line, no, Thin Line wasn't a good film. That is just to be honest.
Fair enough. No, I mean, but I'm asking about the guilt. So when you give a bad review, do you feel guilty?
So I don't. I think it's okay. I imagine, because I'm a filmmaker too, I imagine these guys are going to watch my films, and I don't want them, I don't want them to pretend that they like something that they don't actually like. Right.
Yeah. Thank you for watching, guys. This was yet another episode that, for me, because it's a film that I chose and a film that I like, and I'm glad that everyone has rated it above 5. Yeah. Even Dev, I thought Dev would give it like a 4.
No, it's a great film. I mean, it's just, I have problems with it.
But yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time on the Real African Podcast.